Let's go ahead and add a bad test that needs a timeout. We're going to go ahead and do @test, and we're going to say timeout equal to, let's go ahead and make this, let's say 200 milliseconds. So it needs to execute fairly quickly. And then we'll call this public void bad test. Inside here, what we'll do is we'll just make a for loop. We'll say for int I equals 0, I is less than, and let's try to do this about 10 million times. We'll do 10 and then a million. And then we'll increment I. And then inside here, we're going to say service.add protein. We'll just add 1. Let's go ahead and execute all these tests. And you can see that this bad test is failing. It timed out after 200 milliseconds, and it actually took just over 200 milliseconds to execute. So you could imagine this would be useful in a situation where you have a test that might be taking too long. Obviously, if your test is taking this long, there's probably some kind of a problem. Unfortunately, you can't set a global timeout, so what you're basically going to have to do is determine which tests need to have this timeout. But I'll frequently use this in cases where I have some tests that I know could take a long time or has hung up everything in the past. By setting that timeout, then I can ensure that even if it does end up taking a long time, it'll eventually just fail and time out, and it won't hold up everything else. I've been in situations before where I've had a suite of unit tests that were running and that I set to run overnight, and it hung up on the second test because that test never timed out. So this is useful in situations like that, or when you're specifically trying to test some time goal, although it's pretty hard to do in unit testing because you don't always know what hardware you're running on and you can't really guarantee the execution time, but at least you can test some constraint or some limit of that time. Perhaps as long as it executes under a second, then it's fine, and you could test that on multiple machines and multiple hardware, and if it ever was over a second, you'd know that you have a problem.